Elliot,
Hello.
I have been getting back into 3D printing recently.
You've been getting back into
Yes,
3D printing, the most middle class hobby possible, I think.
that's correct.
You
If
play
you're on
golf and 3D printing. You actually are just so middle class.
yeah. If you're
You're a
on the
gentrifier.
video, if you're on YouTube, you should be able to see now. I've got some parts in front of me of F1 car parts. My friends and I we're printing F1 cars that we are going to then shove a ton of RC electronics in and then race them around a basketball court.
This is actually the most rich boy hobby of all time.
Yes. Well, no, it's the second most rich boy hobby because I could just be actually racing carts and F1.
True. That is true.
So,
I knew
we're the level
kid
below
at
that.
school who wanted to do that, who was quite well off. He always wanted to be an F1 driver, and he would I think his parents let him rent, obviously not F1 cars, but he did not go-karting, but whatever the level above go-karting but underneath racing actual cars is. He was doing that all the time.
Yeah, I'm not there.
No.
But at the end of the day, if I've got a printer and it's gonna cost me not a huge amount of money to print cars, so fuck it, I'm doing it.
I mean, it is pretty cool. I mean, I don't care for F1, but it is cool to be able to 3D print your own cars and drive.
Right? I'm getting the filament in for the tires, which are also going to be printed themselves. There's a middle school near me, and we're going to take over the tennis court and take a bunch of chalk and just draw the track, and we're gonna print the curbs they use as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very enjoyable time. I'm going to record it, I think.
I'm currently wearing the nerdiest thing I own, which is this necklace.
Oh,
you can't
okay.
really see. I know if you're not on video, you really can't see.
It's a Pokemon card.
It's
Or is it a
Jinzo.
Yu-Gi-Oh card?
It's a Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's a printed on silver, laser printed on silver Jinzo, complete with all the text on it. Really cool. The nerdiest thing I own.
We're fucking nerds.
It's to keep me safe from traps. If you played Yu-Gi-Oh, you know what Jinzo does. You know what I mean. I can't fall into a trap now.
All right, let's talk about Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Let's start with the first thing. Today is June 19th, 2024, which marks the 25th anniversary of Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Two things. One, we're vaguely expecting an update today. They did one.
We're always vaguely expecting an update.
They did one on the 20th anniversary. Perfect World came out with this big screenshot of an event that was supposed to be going on yesterday to the 26th, something like that. But we've seen that that's a Perfect World event. With the 20th anniversary of them coming out with the 20th anniversary case and stuff, and there being a lot of leaks recently with maps, I felt that it was worthwhile enough for us to chat about this.
Yeah, I mean it is, but you just
grain of salt. Let's be very clear. Big grain of salt.
Expecting Valve to do anything at any given time is a waste of everyone's energy. They work on their own schedule. If they want to put something out, they will. But they'll probably do their 25th anniversary posts in 6 months' time.
There were a bunch of the general leakers have said something along the lines of the case exists. Apparently, they're supposed to be adding Thera and Mills, right, which are not the most important maps that they're adding because they're adding Pool Day to Arms Race.
Who the fuck is playing Arms Race?
I'm not playing Arms Race. On the other hand, the amount of good memories I have playing Pool Day is incredibly high.
So I have more good memories playing CSGO. Bring back CSGO. I have a lot of good memories playing CSGO.
And then there's this. We'll have our editor Mac put it here on the screen. There's part of Assembly, which is one of the new. It's a wingman map, and it's a deathmatch map or something like that. It's got a big ass plane being assembled. It has a website on the side of it, which then goes to a real website that shows featured destinations, including Italy, Greece, and the Netherlands, which is all maps that they're talking about adding in this update. And then it shows the Pool Day thing, and it's sketch enough that it's kind of interesting.
Greece presumably being Santorini, Italy being
which
Italy.
is Thera. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is it? Okay.
No, Thera would be Greece, and then Memento is a wingman map, and it's a picture straight from the map.
Right. Okay.
But it's there's enough
Coincidental
contextualize,
elements.
Jesus Christ, English today. Coincidental stuff that
Yeah.
it feels like there could be a thing. Additionally, while that's going on, we've had teams below up.
Yeah, there's been a lot.
So I think let's start with that. I think that's our big number one story to start with. Rostermania has started. What a great time. Let's start from the newest and go back in time. We're going to be getting our information from the HLTV Rostermania thread, and we'll add additional stuff when necessary of things that we've heard or things that they've missed. I'm going to skip past some of this. Okay, so let's talk about Into the Breach, I think is our first one. Came out this morning. Chaos and Juan Flatro joined. We had talked about last week that you had heard about Juan Flatro.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us heard about Chaos, though.
I'd heard it, but I'd heard it was like... It was... I'd heard a few names. Chaos is one of them, but I'd forgotten it. But I had heard it. I'd heard Boros was looked at. Not the most inspiring. Like, Chaos is fine, but like...
So for everyone who doesn't remember who Chaos is, because I'd understand that, he's one of the players that was on Gamer Legion for a while, but he got replaced back in March.
Yeah, he was the worst player on that Gamer Legion team that made it to the major final.
Yep.
By some distance as well. Like, he sort of bottlenecks them, I think. It's a shame, I quite like him, but he's very good.
Yeah. The signing of Juan Flatro, we kind of expected this, but Juan Flatro was one of the guys on
Juan Flatro is very, very talented. Very talented. It's just a case of harnessing it because he was a Bad News Eagles player. They're hard to harness. They're like bundles of pure energy. It's like buying a husky. If you can control it, it's great. What a loyal dog, what a loving dog. But most of the time, you have no idea what it's going to do. It's just going to cry at you.
So I think that the next two bits are the more interesting things. So first of all, they've already announced on Twitter they've got one player left, and it's the quote star rifler. So the Boros name that you had heard could still be true. It could. I
think that was unlikely. I don't think it would be him. I think that Boros was unlikely, but that was like something they were looking into, but I don't know if they would. I mean, a team with Boros, Smooyar, and Juan Flatro on it is only going to end one way, and it's not good.
It's so what I think is more important than either Chaos or Juan Flatro in terms of it is the actual structure that they put around this Into the Breach team. They brought Juve back as their coach, who was their coach during the run they had at the Paris Major, who has kind of been consistently marked as this coach who brings up and coming talent through. He seems like the Portuguese Sheikh Zula if he was a coach the whole time.
Sort of. I think that's probably... He was on Into the Breach. How good can he really be? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
there's a part of that.
Was he that good?
But I think the more interesting thing with him is the assistant coach that they signed, Crystal.
I think I missed this. Oh, Crystal, yeah. Well, he was with the Bad News Eagles.
Yeah, so I really like Crystal being signed here. I like this. It feels right for this team to have a coach that kind of just is the same, builds people up the same way. Yeah. So Crystal was actually playing with like NATO Sapphics and stuff in a roster. This is his first real coach thing.
I say he was with Bad News Eagles, I'm sure.
I think he was like
or Guild Eagles. Yeah, I think he was assistant coach to Devil Walk. If I remember right.
But I like the signing of Crystal. Crystal makes sense in my head.
You want somebody who knows how to harness players, because that seems going to be hard to control. It's going to be like herding cats.
Yeah, we've always talked about Crystal. We have talked about Crystal a lot for a guy that has never played while we've been podcasting. But we
I mean,
talked a lot about Crystal as this guy who he's going to be the worst player on your team, but he elevates every other player to some insane degree.
I once
And
wrote about Crystal that watching him win games is like watching Ash Ketchum beat the Elite Four battling alongside his Charizard. Like, he must be a good in-game leader because he wins games with Crystal. Ash
yeah,
Ketchum must be a good trainer because he's the one fighting and he's still winning. He's still beating up Pokemon. And
all
he
right.
saw it and thought it was funny, so...
Hey, that's a big win. Wildcard, NA team. They've made some interesting moves. So they used to have the team was previously Stanislaw, JBA, Sonic, Slight, and Grizz. If you don't recognize half those names, I don't blame you. The reason we're talking about them though is because they've added phzy and susp instead of Slight and Grizz.
Susp is meant to be very good.
Susp is meant to be very good. It's Adam B's
I
twin
don't know
brother.
how good he is, but he's meant to be good. Phzy... I don't know how good Phzy is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually
don't
don't know
know
how
either.
good he is. Because
he's played for a lot of teams recently that you kind of
just
just don't know because he went and played for Rare Atom for like
which
a
isn't a
good
good
chunk of a
sign, is
year.
it? Like, it's not a good
He
sign when he keeps changing teams. It's a
yeah
shame. I want to like Phzy as a player.
he was playing for Sangal. He was playing for JJ Howe. I think he actually qualified for the Esports World Cup with JJ Howe.
Mm.
So I don't know what they're doing because that team was.
But I don't know what they're doing at any point in time.
That's you know what? That's a very fair point.
That team is mental. It doesn't make any sense.
But it's weird all around. But I think that this elevates this team. I don't think this team fights for a top spot in North America because of these changes, but
no, but that is also quite a low bar at the moment.
yeah.
There's basically one good team in NA now.
We're gonna get to North America in a minute because there's some questions now. Let's start with Team Liquid. Official moves that have happened. CadiaN has been benched. It's the only official thing. Okay?
Which we knew was happening, but still nobody really understands outside of that team.
Unofficial things that we think are happening. Zeus is out at Liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And we think skullz is going somewhere else, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
So that leaves Liquid with the core of Naf, Twists, and Yakindar. Looking for an IGL, looking for an Opper.
Yakindar just seems to outlast like multiple iterations of this team without ever playing well. And I know this team specifically wasn't really his fault that he was bad because like he was the only aggressive piece on it. He was always going to struggle. But like, at what point do you give up on Yakindar? Because there's been multiple iterations of this roster built around him or sort of with him in it that don't work. And at some point you have to consider the idea that maybe he's part of the problem.
Yeah. There's been a lot of conversation about Team Liquid's management. That, hey, you had the world's best roster in 2019 that run the Grand Slam. We kind of you gotta kind of forget about 2020 for a little bit. But then once you came back in 2021, you had this roster and it didn't perform to expectations. You made some moves. You brought an OC. It kind of still didn't pan out. You did the whole European route and that really still didn't pan out. And you came back and you've got you had an NA roster for a second, or you're on this you've got this roster now with the European NA mix with Brazil involved. And none of it seemed to work out since that Grand Slam roster. And it's not like, I don't think that the bar is, oh, we expect you to be a Grand Slam team every 5 minutes.
No, but maybe a consistent top 10 would be nice.
Yeah, it feels like they went from like a top 3 team in the world, top 2 team in the world, right? To just like struggling to be top 20.
Mm-hmm.
And
which does happen quite a lot in esports, but yeah, Liquid have made multiple changes, multiple rosters that look like they could work, and they just haven't, and you have to wonder why that's happening.
Yeah, so there's been some definite questions about Yoka Steve and his management of the team. To be fair, I don't know how much say he actually has over how the team.
No, that's the thing with these. You rarely do know who's in charge.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, and again, this is me guessing, Yoka Steve's management is more literally managing the team, not roster building the team.
Yeah, which sounds like the same, but they're really not.
Yeah, he comes from a League of Legends background, as far as I remember.
I don't think he'll be in charge of roster building.
I think he's
more like a committee that would be in charge of it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think he's more in charge of like making sure players are on the plane at time and getting hotels and being at tournaments and that kind of shit.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that leaves Liquid with some moves. One of the rumored things is that Twist is going to take up IGLing.
Yeah,
I don't particularly love this.
I don't love it. I don't.
I
hate it.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah,
but it feels to me like Twist being 24 is too young for him to start IGLing. I'd understand if Twist was 28, 29, and he said, I'm going to start IGLing because that helps me elongate my career. Twist
apparently he's a regular second caller anyway. So it's not that out of the realm of things. You probably lose some ability from him, but Twist's main ability is how versatile he is and how you can kind of put him in any roles and he's still really good. And I think it's fine to just have a player like that. Like, it's similar to like if Magist IGL, you wouldn't be too upset.
No, and Magist, we've actually been calling for Magist to IGL for years, right? So I'm not upset about it, but I'm not totally for it yet. I'm gonna have to see it in practice to really have a good vibe on it.
I don't know who else you get though. Is the problem? So CadiaN doesn't work. Who the hell do you try?
So there's been a couple of rumors. None of them being substantial to any degree. The biggest rumor I've seen, or the biggest wish I've seen, is Glaive coming out of ENCE.
I mean, yeah, but then do you think that would work? I don't.
I don't know if it would work or not, but I feel like if you want to give the core of Naf Yekindar Twist a shot, I don't know if there's a better player in the world, barring whether they're available or not, than Glaive to give that core a shot.
I feel like Glaive is just worse than CadiaN. If CadiaN didn't work, why would Glaive? I understand there's a style difference, but like, if you're not willing to 100% commit to CadiaN as your in-game leader, you had CadiaN. He was in-game leader of the best team in the world, there or thereabouts, for about 2 years. And you bring him in, and you are not willing to bend to his rule. You are not willing to listen to him. You are not willing to submit to his system or whatever. Like, whatever it is, you don't work with CadiaN. What makes you think Glaive? What makes you think they'll listen to Glaive, or that Glaive would be any better? Will he give them more freedom? Maybe, but like, if you want freedom, just have Twist in game lead.
So there may be playing devil's advocate for a minute, right? It may have been the combination of CadiaN, Zeus, and skullz was the problem. It may not have been Naf Twist's Yekindar that was the non-buying in players, or however it worked, right?
But then they're getting rid of skullz and Zeus and still getting rid of CadiaN, so
I think that the skullz move, I think, is its own bit here, and I think they may just go, we're cleaning house, we're going to try something else, because they've tried the piecemeal bit before, and the piecemeal bit didn't work. On just like, oh, we're going to make one change, or we're going to make one other change, that you keep going like little iterable changes, and I think that they want to try and make a bigger change.
I mean, fine, but like, if there definitely is the core of players that had an issue with CadiaN.
The thing I keep seeing with absolutely, and I mean this, and I cannot push this point enough, zero credible sourcing behind it, okay, is Simple to Liquid.
Simple to Liquid will be rumored every single time someone needs a player from now until 2080. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting, but I don't think it's happening. I said this the other day in the Dust 2 US Discord when I was having a conversation about Liquid and what Liquid wants to do. I need to find it. Okay, so basically I said, and I think I've said it on here before as well, but I don't think Liquid should be looking... in replacing CadiaN, you have to replace two players. You have to replace an IGL and you have to replace an AWP. That's one of the huge benefits of CadiaN, and I guess now Device as well, when Fallen, is that he fills two boxes, right? So
that is a benefit, but it's also a curse.
Yeah,
because it means you can't get Monacy, you can't get Zywoo, you can't get Simple.
no disagreement, but I think personally that Liquid should go back to a style of 5 rifles. We've seen in CS2 that unless your name is Monazy, the op is just not as good.
Yep.
And that's not a diss to Zywoo, who's still very good in the CS2, or
Zywoo doesn't AWP as much.
But a lot of players just aren't opting as much because it just doesn't feel as good, right? And Monazy is the exception to this rule. The best player in the world right now, out of 3 of them, one is a pure rifler in Donk, one is a hybrid rifle op who rifles a lot more than he ops in Zywoo, and then Monazy. But you keep going down the list of like the top 10 players or so, it's all riflers.
Yeah.
We used to have this list and it would be like all oppers, and it's kind of changed from that at this point.
The top right Monacy conundrum. Every graph you make, Monacy's top right.
But I think that instead of trying to build around a star op or someone who is going to be a liability on rifle, Liquid goes back to the 5 rifle style they had during the Grand Slam period, where Nitro happened to op when it made sense. And you could use NAF as an op player or bring in someone else that can op to a degree. Yeah, because you're not looking, the amount that you gain just doesn't feel enough when unless you've got Monazy. It feels like if you're trying to push a lot of effort into a star opper here, it doesn't feel it feels like lost gains or something like that. Like you're just you're not getting as much as you're giving.
Diminishing returns.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. 5 rifles would probably work. You can always have Twist AWP when he wants, or NAF AWP when he wants. Like, they can all kind of AWP. But it's probably a reason teams don't 5 AWP anymore. Maybe they'd be the meta breakers, and they would show everyone, look, you don't need to. You don't need an AWP. But, like, it doesn't work in CS2. You don't have as much money, and even when you do, the gun don't work as well. Maybe. It's a risk, though. I suppose at this point, Liquid are in a position where they need to take risks because they keep going the safe route and it's not working. But
that's exactly what I was going to say. It feels like at this point, Liquid has done the move that we go, and I'm going to exclude the weird European team for a minute. They have done the move that we said, this makes the most logical sense. Hey, look, CadiaN's available. We're going to get CadiaN to lead this team, and we're going to bring in an up-and-coming player to fill our 5th spot. That made sense. That was a sensible move. We've lost our entry fragger. We're going to bring in Yakindar, the best entry fragger in the world at that moment.
Yeah.
Right? The moves they have had are very sensible, but it feels like at one point you need to make the 70% what the fuck is this move and kind of hope you stumble into something.
It doesn't have to be, I mean, that was the Rainwaker move, I think, but like, it doesn't have to be completely insane, does it? It just needs to be a little bit out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 5 rifles is the way to go. I'm not 100% against it. I think, though, if you were going to go 5 rifles, they probably should have tried to sign Malbs.
Let's talk about Malbs. So it's officially confirmed that Malbs has left M80, and it is all but confirmed that he is going to G2. Right? We talked about it last week on our podcast. Ryan put stuff up on Dust 2. They put stuff up on HLV. It's basically confirmed that it's for Nexa, which we had talked about last week that we had thought it was for phzy and that Nico was going to start IGLing. It seems it's for Nexa. There could be more moves, though.
Yeah, I think phzy's also being benched, right?
I hadn't heard it yet, but I hadn't not heard it.
I think so. Because there's no way you bring in Malbs for Nexa. Like, what are the roles then?
I don't know.
You've got 3 entry fraggers.
These are
phzy, who's like an old school entry fragger. Nico, who's like the new school opener. And then Malbs, who's sort of a hybrid of the 2. And it's like, you can't all go in first, lads. Somebody's got to be Nexa. I don't know.
Someone has to have shit roles. Like,
yeah, and I don't know. My concern is they're going to put Malbs there.
Well, to quote you last week, either he fixes Nico or you can blame Nico for ruining Malbs.
Yeah.
Either way, profit.
But maybe they just put phzy in Nexus roles, use Malbs as phzy, and everyone else stays the same. I don't know, but
the question I have I think is more interesting about this move: who does M80 get? Because
I don't think that's
M80.
more. I think more interesting is MalbsMd too,
Okay, well, you can think that's more interesting. I
because
personally think
M80 are not going to sign anyone interesting.
I tend to agree with you. And the thing, I think M80 wants to stay as a NA team. I who is it? Is it Andy Barton, who's the owner of NRG, had talked about for a while that they were going to become an NA team, not specifically because they wanted to be the best team in the world, but because the way that their sponsorship money works says we are going to be an NA team because that's where our sponsorships come from,
Yeah,
and that's what we need to be. We need to point to this NA crowd.
I mean that's the only reason you'd be an NA team.
Yeah, so M80
Realistically,
is, I believe, in the same boat. Right now they have two United States players and two German players. So they'd have to add
yeah,
a Canadian or a Mexican player or an American
another
player.
Guatemalan.
Yeah, they could add another Guatemalan. Central
Don't know
America
if any
is
exist, but
part of North America. Yeah, so it comes to a little bit of a weird thing on who they add. In my head, JBA is the next guy up from
yeah, I
Wildcard,
was
but
going to say that's who they're going to sign, like somebody like JBA, which is a little bit boring. That's what I mean. Like, that's
I
the
don't
thing.
know if
You
they signed
can't replace
JBA though.
Malbs. You can't
No,
replace Malbs inside NA. He's unless you get like Elige. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the only players better than Malbs are on teams better than you.
yeah, I had seen something somewhere about like the three people that you would think about signing are like it's Malbs and it's like a liege and I don't know. I'd seen something somewhere about this and
Yeah,
it
like
I didn't
Malbs,
love
Elige,
any of it.
Twist, Naf are like the best
It's
riflers in the
so
region.
so someone said the Elige, Sexy and Dumao, but Dumao probably not because of the buyout and
Yeah, buying players from
like
Brazil is too expensive, and Dumao I think is a bit of a risk. He seems to blow hot and cold too often.
I agree.
Some teams
So
he's really good, some teams he's really bad, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason why.
speaking of Brazil, let's talk about skullz because we had talked about
Yeah.
Team Liquid and how they are benching CadiaN and that skullz was going somewhere and that they were removing Zeus. Um, let's talk about Brazil as a whole because Furia has been the team in Brazil for a very long time. And I'd say about 5 years they've been because
Mm-hmm.
as of June 21st, which will be the day after this podcast goes up, I believe it'll be Friday, KSCERATO and yuurih's deals are up. And we know
Mm-hmm.
this because they signed 5-year deals in 2019, which at the
Jesus
time we
Christ.
thought was fucking insane. And you know what?
It was.
It was. But
Yeah.
it kind of worked out for those two players.
It worked out for those two, but that was never the issue was never how good a deal it was for KSCERATO and yuurih. It was more how good is it for Furia, which they've been stuck with this team for so long.
Yes, I agree. Okay. I wonder how that deal actually went at the end of the day. I wonder if that actually benefited KSCERATO and yuurih because they were if it actually benefited Furia, sorry, because Furia didn't have to pay KSCERATO what he would have been worth 2 years ago or a year ago when he
True.
was a top 3 rifler in the world.
True. But
Um,
then what did they get out of it? Very little in the end.
that's a great question. I'm trying
And
to find
yuurih's
the
been basically downhill ever since. So.
the contract. So they signed the entire team at the time. And I'm trying to figure out who the entire team at the time was. It was Art, yuurih, Vinny, KSCERATO, and Abel J. So three players from that roster are no longer on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
They probably
Exactly,
got
which
their
is why 5-year deal was never really made sense for that team. But
they probably got their money out of Art, to be fair.
yeah, like in a sense. But then again, they felt a little bit stuck in a rut with this team. Like they were never wanted to cut Art. They never wanted to cut yuurih because they're committed to them. And it's like if you weren't so committed to them, maybe you could have gotten better.
So it seems like they are replacing Kai, who was their 5th player, who was
Yeah.
absolutely not ready for tier 1, etc., etc. It looks like they're bringing skullz in, which would be, maybe for the first time ever, the most reasonable move I could expect from Furia.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much spot on. Yeah.
I'm curious to see what happens with KSCERATO and yuurih, though. Because with their contracts
KSCERATO might end up going to Liquid.
Yep. That is exactly what I'm thinking in my head, is that
or G2.
Oh, God, no. With KSCERATO and yuurih's contracts up, KSCERATO more so, he will be suited by about every team possible.
Mm-hmm.
And considering it's June 19th and we're 2 days before the deals expire, I feel like we would have heard something about his contract being extended by this point.
Yeah, we might also have heard something about him moving by now. I think we don't have vines in the Brazilian scene in the same way, so it's hard for us to know exactly what the feelers are. He might not know either, to be fair. He might be. Yeah. They might have offered him a deal, and he's like, "I'm going to have a look first."
Yeah, he wants to be.
But let's not forget, agent. Liquid tried to sign him before, and he turned them down to stay at Furia. I know circumstances were different then, but like,
I was gonna say, what was Furia then versus what is?
Well,
Furia
no, what
now?
it was just after his father passed away, and he didn't want to leave Brazil.
Okay, that too. But I mean, if you're KSCERATO and you're looking at this team that they've made right now, I don't know how much you are encouraged to stay.
No, I think that he wanted to play with Fallen originally. Maybe he still does, but
it'll be a tad bit interesting on what goes on there, I think, because we don't know a huge amount more in the in Brazil. And it feels a little it feels like we don't know what's going to go on. There were rumors about Phelps joining Furia, I think, for a bit.
He said no, right?
Yeah.
He basically came out and said, I'd rather stay on Imperial, which fair enough, I guess.
That's, you know what?
I don't think Phelps doesn't like traveling, from what I remember. The Brazilian guy told me once that he doesn't really like the traveling. He wants to just stay in Brazil, so he has fewer international events on Imperial.
Yeah, power to him if you want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other last bits on Rostermania? I've got one, but it is a tangent. M80, when they had confirmed Malbs leaving.
Oh, is this about the
yes.
tweet?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They put up a tweet that said, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened," in all black and white, about how many 340 days, 220 maps, 3,875 kills, countless memories. Thank you, Mario. And it was just like slow and like classical-ish music. And then they had like this 3-minute video of like all the teammates and the management and stuff saying goodbye to him. Former TLDR member Brian put a nice little bit under that said, "Rip Mario, I missed that guy already," with some dates and an emoji.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a strange video. It's very similar to that North one back in the day.
It really looked like it. It really made it look like he was he had passed. So much so that our favorite esports journalist, Jake Lucky, put up a nice little "what a great up and coming player, gone too soon."
Yeah, he used the wrong 2, which I think is a more concerning part of if you're a journalist, you use the wrong 2. To me, that's more concerning than falling for the bait.
I agree, but I cannot believe that he had written that. He claims it was a joke. I do not believe it was a joke.
I don't believe anyone who uses the wrong 2 is capable of understanding a joke anyway.
He has since deleted it, which I think really pushes the fact that it's not a joke.
Exactly, right.
I guess the last bit we'll talk about today is Blast.
Yeah,
because that happened.
It did.
It was a thing that happened.
It was the end of the season. There was a bit of a end of season feel to it, I think.
Yeah. And I guess the major officially got announced for next year.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as it gets leaked, you basically know. Like, nobody leaks it and gets it wrong, where it just doesn't happen.
The one interesting thing I thought about the major, we'll talk about that really quickly. It's going to be at the University of Texas basketball stadium. I'm very excited for that. Because, well, Texas sports are a huge thing, and those arenas are real fucking nice, especially since NIL came in and sponsors, and like they're not spending as much money on the players from like corporate sponsors and stuff. They spend a lot more money on the individual players through name, image, and likeness deals. It's a real fucking nice looking stadium, and it means it may actually be available via public transportation because it is a college campus. Which, you know what? That's a win for me.
It's a win for everyone, I think.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's a win for everyone, but it's definitely a win for me personally. I've decided that.
Go back to Blast. They say that the last event of the season always feels a little bit
like it doesn't matter.
Sort of, yeah, but it actually really did matter because of when the final cutoff for major related things
Yeah.
was. But
so it seems so. Let's chat about that for a second. The Shanghai major is in November or October.
I think it might be December.
It's real fucking late. Okay, it's real fucking late.
I think it's last event of the year.
The Shanghai major ends December 3rd. Oh no, never mind. It ends December 15th.
It's December the 15th, right?
It starts November 11th. It ends December 15th. But the start November 11th is actually the RMR start then, which are all in Shanghai because it is.
Yeah.
So it is. They're taking the Valve rankings from like August, and that's what they're using to determine RMRs. And that's a big deal.
It's going to be
a lot of reasons. So let's talk about it for the overt reason, right? A team in August versus a team in December, generally different teams. So if you are an excellent team right now, let's say you're Mouse, and you regress, you still may make the major.
Yeah. Like if Mouse are good until August and then Exertion and Sui both break their wrists, like trying to punch each other.
Yeah.
And the team all hates each other and two of their players are injured. They're still in.
I think more importantly, though, if you're a team like, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to give a team here. If you're Fnatic, who haven't won a huge amount of stuff, they're a pretty new team. They're ramping up. If you're not fucking good by August, then you don't make the major.
And a month of that is player break as well.
Yeah, regardless of how good you are in September and October, where you could be the best team in the world, you may not make the major because you weren't good by August.
Yep.
In addition to that, there are penalty points in the Valve ranking for switching players.
Yep.
So every team that is about to do some players here either got to be real fucking high in the rankings, or they got to be prepared to grind the fuck out of a bunch of tournaments to make sure that they get to the qualifying spot.
There fundamentally aren't that many tournaments before. Like this Blast and Zhengping were like two of the last like 3 or 4. Like there's really not that many events before then that matter.
Events that matter, yeah. So I don't think they're taking Esports World Cup into account.
I can't remember.
I can't remember if they are or not. But the next thing is like Blast Premier Fall Groups, and that's it. They may take Cologne. Cologne may be the real last event that they take into account. But there's nothing between Fall Groups and Cologne, because between now and Fall Groups, which starts July 29th, is the player break. There's Esports World Cup and the player break, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's really not a whole lot going on until by the time it closes, so you're just kind of screwed at this point. If you're not good now, you've got no chance.
Yep. So
and also, let's not forget, like teams can come back after the player break completely different.
Famously, will
and it
come
just
back
doesn't matter.
Completely different,
and it just makes no difference.
So it'll be an interesting shit show, but it'll be a shit show. The reason is, from what I can gather, is because visas to China are quite difficult. They had seen it with the Valorant event that they had just done in Chengdu. I think they did Masters in Chengdu. but because of a bunch of visa situations, because they're not there, they're there for more than a week or so or whatever it is. Apparently, it is a lot more difficult to get the visa, but they need to be there at the RMR because you can't get a visa quick enough to go there for the major if you're in an RMR. So it's a whole thing. Let's talk about Blast.
Anyway, Team Spirit won.
Yeah. Blast Team Spirit. Real fucking good. This Donk kid.
Yeah.
He may have a future one day.
We talked about how it didn't actually matter if they won now because they had so much time on their hands, but they're already winning now, which kind of terrifying for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It makes like the sort of teams who build for the short term look a bit silly because Spirit are built for the long term and they're already better than you. So when are you aiming to be better than? When are you going to be better than Donk, Shiro, Magix?
Never.
Exactly. Like
that's a personal thing. I'm never going.
They're only getting better. They're only getting better, and some of these teams are not.
Yeah, I don't. Spirit continue to be our favorites to win the Major 2 of this year.
Yep.
We said it at the beginning of the year. We said it in January when we did our predictions podcast for the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of us said maybe I said Mouse.
I think you said Mouse.
Spirit.
And I said Spirit.
I think that both of those are very
both
legitimate.
Both are good shouts. Yeah, both are
very legitimate.
Both are really clever right now.
God, what happens?
Quite as clever in 5 months.
I was gonna say, what happens if we come to the end of the year and we just actually look smart? We may have to just end this.
Yeah, we might have to not play our predictions back because it'll look.
If we're too smart,
correct. Yeah,
this event, I don't know. I didn't watch a huge amount of this event. Didn't feel like
I was working Japan, so I didn't watch that much either.
It kind of felt whatever. Saw was the perennial last place team in this event, not because they're bad, but because every other team was good. G2 didn't have Monazi for a good chunk. I think he came in for the lower finals against.
He did, but he didn't have any time to warm up, and you could kind of tell.
Yeah. I would like to talk about Taz, the absolute fucking goat, in his one match against Spirit, where he shit on Donk in one pistol round. And it
didn't
went
he
on
AWP him at one point as well? Or
he may have.
I can't remember what it was. Yeah.
It went on the highlight reels for about 20 minutes and then there was a lot of statistics there about Donk being like 3 years old when Taz won his major.
Yeah.
Fucking
2013
hilarious.
I think he was 6.
Yeah. Fucking hilarious.
I think he was 6 when Taz won his major, if my maths correct. Donk was 2007. And Taz's major was 2013, I believe.
I think you're right. Absolutely hilarious. Very in on it. Great jokes. It was Navi Spirit final. Navi felt like they finally found their footing again after the major. But Blade has come out already. Yeah, Wonderful existed again. Blade had come out and said that basically the best of 5 was too much for them. And I don't super blame them on that. Best of 5s are brutal.
Alexi B is a horrible record at best of 5s as well.
Yeah. So
he's like won 1 out of 18 maps in his last 6 best of 5 or last 5 best of 5s, I think.
But Donk existed. And I think that is a big enough thing to talk about because
Donk's he's ridiculous, man.
We saw Donk was it in Dallas that we had seen Donk?
Katowice. There he was God. He was God in Katowice. He was kind of like fine in Dallas.
Yeah, that's what I want. I wanted to talk about him being fine because he wasn't the same player in Dallas. And we had talked about like, hey, this guy's going to be up and down for a bit because he's just got onto a stage for the first time. He's just starting to play in these big games. He went into the Wembley Arena or whatever it was. So not Wembley where they play like big sports, but Wembley where they play small sports. And they fucking crushed it. And it was a total turnaround of Dallas. And it was like, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks after Dallas to begin with, and they totally turned it around and made it.
Counter-Strike's a game of very, very fine margins. Sometimes you're on the nice end of them, sometimes you're not. The trick is to just be good often enough that sometimes you get lucky.
Just get good. That's, I'm in for that. Just get good. All right.
Just be good enough that you can get lucky.
I think this is going to finish us off here for today. You can follow us on Twitter at LoganWrapUp, at AZSkin, at ReadTLDR. This will be our last episode up until the end of the player break.
Yeah.
Unless a ton of shit happens, and then we'll have a
Yeah.
Rostermania episode.
We'll have an emergency one, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have an emergency one. But you probably won't. You may not hear from us for a good couple of weeks at this point. So wish you all a good summer. Or if you're from the Southern Hemisphere, a good summer but colder.
Winter.
I think they still call it summer, don't they?
Don't think so.
Okay, well, good winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Go watch another esport. Go touch grass if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Go play golf.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.